Alrighty, so I'm going to use a whiteboard now to explain basically the phenomenon that has happened. So for centuries, for millennia, empires and cities have had a central region and then have encouraged people to congregate around that region, and this is because of distribution of lots of things. Generally not actually food, just distribution of human contact, of entertainment, of political influence and things like that. They're like a magnet. This is when you hear all roads lead to Rome. The reason we say that is because Rome was a gigantic empire and they built roads. And so they built roads to bring people to Rome. This has happened over and over and over again all over the place, and we've had huge migrations of people from from rural to urban. The last significant place where this happened was China. So China has urbanized its population, who was not that long ago massive rural agricultural population, and we've done the same. And just this alone destroys centuries of tradition, of traditional knowledge, of families, of like interaction with the land, because we're drawn into this magnet, and families lose their children to it. They're industrialized. Japan has gone through this. The United States has gone through this. Australia has gone through this, and this is where we're at. The problem is that we, right in the urbanization of China and the super urbanization of the Western world, we developed a little screen and something called the internet. Now, this should have been the moment that we realized that we had no need for this dot anymore, and that this system was going to fail because we had distributed distributors. So once we can distribute to some pretty high level all the things that were distributed in the city, this is where we should have started designing our societies differently, but we didn't. And you can't really blame us, because we've been doing this for 10,000 years. So this was the largest disrupting innovation in history. Now, not necessarily bad. By its nature, it's just a tool. But if we misunderstand the way that it's going to disrupt, which is what we did en masse globally, then inevitably we end up with our own little city centre in our hands. Now, there's a couple of more things that added to the absolute horrific nature that once you snap out of you'll be able to see. If you look at a book that even explores 50 years ago, you will see how destructive this concept and this device and this continuation down this city urbanization mentality has been due to this device. Because a city was a collection of people, and this is where they kind of competed for political influence to basically shape the city. And this is why when we have great city centres of the past, they generally have a collection of great people, of great minds that all competed in the democracy to decide what the city would be like. What will be the signature of this city? What will we achieve? What will our highest priorities be? And all these things. So this is democracy. It was birthed in cities by great people who competed to decide the direction of the city. Now, what happened here? Not immediately, but slowly but surely, by basically continuously selling to the desires of individuals. We created, each device had an algorithm, now we're all pretty familiar with algorithms, that made each device like your very own city centre. And so your device, you were the president of your device. And so you could curate based on what you watch. You didn't even need to actively do this. It did it on its own based on what you interact with. You were shown more and more of that thing. So that power that would be unbelievable to anyone, any of our ancestors who had to vie, who had to compete and vie for positions within a democracy, were all gone. The desires weren't there because within your own device, which you more and more and more became, centered around, even all of your, say, work or your family or everything like that was all coming through your own little city centre that you controlled. You were the lord, you were the king, you were the whatever of your device. And so this was like blinders that exposed everyone to their own perfect little utopia, whilst the outside world was kind of neglected and then hijacked by a global concentrated force that inevitably tried to encompass all the existing geographical democracies under one big umbrella. And we were all so conditioned by our perfect utopian device world that we allowed it to happen until it starts breaking in every single way. Now, of course, one of the priorities of these hijackers is to disable the ability to sound the alarm of this phenomenon. And that's why children have been barred from social media, so that they can't speak. They can't say, hey, mummy and daddy are trying to kill each other. This, my teacher's trying to convince me to chop my dick off. My job, I've done the maths on it and I will never be able to buy a house ever, and this is some big stratified mess of an economy that doesn't make sense anymore, which there will be children always that are smart enough to work these things out. The role here of these hijackers that have hijacked our democracy is to make sure those intelligent children are silenced before they have the opportunity to seize the reins of power. And then they make this structure here that was abandoned by the masses in lieu of their perfect utopian phone. They make this structure just a bunch of bureaucratic paperwork mess. They fence it off. They build giant fences with paperwork and with legislation. They employ more and more and more people so that you are not just coming up, you're not just applying for a local position in Parliament, your very words have to be carefully selected so that you don't fall into one of the trap holes that they've dug around you. And it's almost impossible to avoid this if you're actually criticising the system nowadays. You will inevitably fall in one of their holes. And because everyone is so conditioned by their utopian phone, this includes the police officers, the judiciary, the jury, your peers, your teachers. Everyone is so brainwashed by their utopian kingdom that they own, like The Sims or like Sim City, but like worse. They're not even able to police or to legislate or to observe their own system, and so they are susceptible to system capture, which means they just do their job. If a policeman gets a thing that says to arrest someone, they arrest them. They don't listen to the person and say, well, maybe there's something going on. They just do as they're told. System capture. This happens in all large corporations, and it happened with this hijacked democracy that we now see all around us. So what do? Well, we need to retake the democratic system, and we need to accept that this disruptive device has meant the end of the city centre. Then we need to democratise all our devices to some type of harmonious digital framework. So a base framework that all of us as individuals can agree on. And to do this, we need to look at the entire history of democracy, of nation formation, of kingdoms, of everything. We cannot continue down the track that we had done. And this is why I've continuously addressed my concerns to the royal family, because they sit atop our constitutional monarchy. Unfortunately, our constitutional monarchy is a city centre based phenomenon. And so it doesn't work when we are all able to evenly distribute on our device, unless we do some really complicated, societal change. We need to all have the ability to stand on our device free from a city centre. The problem I have is I'm not comfortable in settling in any region that I've seen, because they are all captured by this city centre ancient model that is becoming, or that has become, obsolete because of the devices. And so this is why I continuously just do what I should be doing, which is democratically explaining my point of view from my kingdom that I have on my device. And these are things where it's like, I'd happily show you my feed of any of my social networks, because I'm not ashamed of them, because I've built something I'm quite happy with. It's not filled with gossip. It's not filled with luxury cars. It's not filled with, there are some half-naked women, and there's a never-ending line of them that seem to jump into my inbox. So I'm upset about that a little bit, whatever. But you can see how I'm now bringing my structure that I've built over 7,000 posts, my cultural sketch for what I would make my region to be. If I were in the old days, I would go find some region and try and rise to the top of it, and then try and bring my vision to light. But that's not going to work, because we're captured by this state-based system and the local government is below that. And so they're all just playing this game. And the individual identity that's continuously developed, either positively or negatively, by our algorithms and by our total control and total isolation within our own digital algorithms on our own devices, that's becoming less and less acceptable, or it feels less and less acceptable to try and fit into a system where the collective is all dividing but being kept together just by momentum. And that's understandable as well, because we have thousands of years of momentum. So this is the largest cultural democratic shift that we're ever going to see, and we need to just rearrange some of the systems, because humans, the majority of citizens, if they're not too impeded by their legislation, they won't want to interfere. They will just go along with it. And this is where, if you work for a large organisation where the efficiency of scale is kind of absorbed by the scale of the organisation, like large resource companies, large supermarket companies, large distributing companies, large media companies, large anything, where your interaction with the government is kind of diluted through the scale of the organisation that you work for, then you don't feel this. If there's money in your bank and you can pay the things you're paying, and and your children are living in their own little algorithm device, and you're living in your own device, then you're all just quite content. Nothing comes through and pops your bubble even the screams or the demands from your fellow citizens that may have not been in those large organisations and may have not been buffered by the efficiency of scale, that may have been trying to innovate new solutions, like perhaps a large screen that doesn't individually masturbate our highest desires, a larger device that actually encourages humanity. Those individuals will find it almost impossible to break through this system. Because if you're trapped within Pleasure Island, Fantasy Island, your wildest desires, this is a strategy used for millennia as well, to corrupt the minds and hearts and souls of men and women and lead them down a path that you desire them to be on. You give them everything they want. So this is everyone. Everyone has been given a device that gives them everything they want whenever they want it. So why would they risk all of that to help some noisy reject, some noisy ostracized node, which is all we're also broken down to by this system? We're just nodes. We're not individuals. So in one hand, usually our right hand, the one that holds a device, we're all powerful masters of our very own individual reality. And on the left hand, we are a simple little node, unable to be linked together anymore by a savvy political leader, but cast off in an ocean of nodes and attempting to be gathered up in the largest fishing net that has ever been built, that just captures you and moves you to the desired location of the individuals attempting to create this in the world. One large wheel, one large homogeneous monoculture. The most dangerous idea we've ever had. Because each region is incredibly diverse and different. And so it will inevitably fail. And we've seen this in our livestock. So make no mistake, human beings of planet Earth are being treated like one gigantic livestock farm, not by some extraterrestrials or something like that, but just by slow, monotonous degradation of the very systems that make us resilient against our environment, where we abandon all of our local knowledge, all of our local adaptations for some utopian future where we all are the same. Now, that phenomenon, if you think about this, what do we have? Why do we oppose heroin addicts and heroin? What does heroin give its user? It gives them an escape to a world filled with bliss. It makes them ineffective to the rest of society. Now, this is what I would claim all of you are captured by. You are all addicts of the most addictive, destructive drug that has ever been made. What's the definition of a drug? Something that changes your perception of your body or something like that. It's what it is. If you feel like you're the master of your own little universe while you're being ushered into slavery, you're a drug addict. Drug addicts, in one way or another, you could describe them as slaves to their drug dealers. They will steal. They will break into houses to get the money to get their fix. And this is what all of you are. You will watch your societies crumble into one uniform blob of nothingness. You will disregard what should be alarm bells when you see historic structures of order and governance be hijacked by an ever decreasing level of human that increasingly keeps drawing us down to their perceived utopia that they are so confident in because they've been trained to feel all powerful by their device and by their algorithm. So it's the same story. It's like we have all the tools to completely distribute the city centre, to re-emerge from this with a healthy, beautiful democracy. We all have the capability to educate ourselves to the highest level, which is the dream of some of our past leaders and political leaders and emperors and kings and everything, to have an informed population that can autonomously improve itself, that has an understanding of the importance of hierarchical structures, but has the willingness and the confidence to act autonomously. That is the dream. The illusion you're sold is that these people have always wanted to control everyone. They want to control because it is the pathway out of disorder, but autonomous, but still respectful and contributive to the whole democracy. That would actually be the desire of past leaders. No leader, whether it's a business leader, a business manager, or a business owner, they don't want to micromanage every single level. So we have all the tools. We have all the capability. We have everything we need to make a wonderful, distributed, stable, diverse global economy and global political system. But of course, we'll have to have a high importance placed on nationalistic beliefs because that is our only differentiation. That's all there will be. This is the local base. This is best displayed in local football teams, rivalries and things like that. That is all we have. And that is what is being abandoned in our political scene. And constantly they are fencing themselves in and everyone else out. And the way they do that is by not acknowledging adequate criticism. Now, there's going to be a point where my adequate daily criticism is going to just far basically embarrass the hell out of the current standing politicians. And they are going to concede defeat at some point because I'm doing the job that they should be doing and they're doing the job that their individual, self-assured, bloated sense of superiority is telling them to do. And I can explain exactly why. And all they can say is that I'm just doing what the guy did before me. And that is a diagram and a description of system capture. And that is where we live. This isn't a conspiracy. It's not a global war. It's not a invasion of any particular country or an invasion of any particular race or something like that you might hear. It's a industrial accident on a global scale. it's very similar to when, say, we had the tsunami in Fukushima that hit the nuclear base, the nuclear power center. It's something unforeseen that has happened that has had a completely catastrophic effect on society. These, like in Greek mythology, we have what's his name? I've forgotten his name, but the person perceived to have stolen the knowledge of fire. And the story is that he's trapped in a cave and that his liver is pecked out every day by eagles or hawks or something, and then it grows back every night for it to be pulled out again. This is an ancient story that shows that even technologies as crucial as fire have a negative side to them. And so the innovators of these technologies are kind of perpetually tortured, but remembered. It's like a simplistic way to it's meant to instill a responsibility for innovation. On the individual scale, if you build a building and you happen to live in that building, you're very concerned with whether it falls on you. As we distribute further and further our technologies further afield, we're almost insulated from the negative effects of this. And when we all financially bet on these innovations, then we have large structures that are concerned with the protection of the identity of this innovation. Then when we install our entire financial system, our entire political system into that same technology, then we have basically an invisible catastrophe where no one can ever address the fact that it's collapsing until it's too late. And considering this, for this to continue on, we need to have a degrading status of politicians so that they are blind and deaf and dumb to these disintegrations, to the destruction they see around them. And then once they start attacking the critics and silencing the critics, then you'll see how we get to here. Throw in some global monstrous fucking countries that are in conflict and that are facing imminent demise by the entire industrial economic industry of society hanging by a thread, then yeah, we have the perfect storm. But unfortunately, this is more like rot. It's not a gigantic storm and a big wave and all these things that we're used to, or a comet coming in to hit Earth, or a zombie apocalypse. It's a really slow and monotonous degradation, the most difficult thing to see, especially when you're captured by your very own utopian window. And so, yeah, I'll just flick another one of these messages in a bottle out to explain again what is happening, and hope that some of these individuals with historic reputations to protect perhaps find the courage of their ancestors to do something, knowing that it will cause chaos, it will cause poverty, it will cause death, it will cause everything. But if we don't shift course now, if we don't, then we have an inevitable chaotic situation. If chaos hits a certain level from here, we will have no way to salvage anything that we've built. If we continue down this acceptance, if just a few more years of young people are exposed to this degraded state, the memory and the importance of the underlying structure that can be slightly adjusted to accept these technologies will be gone, and then there will just be chaos. There will be mob rule. There will be, All right. Thank you.